Hello. Hey, Sarge.
Hi.
It's time. It's time again for the fucking DMG podcast. To whoever out there is putting thumbs down, I don't like it. Of course, saying now everybody's gonna be like,
Dogpiling our videos.
yeah, but welcome. We are happy to be in again. This is Read the fucking DMG Podquest, where we review some questions and talk about stuff in D&D and have a lot of fun doing it. So
Yeah.
we just got done
So
in our class too. So
yeah, we were feeling inspired after we finished the class because we got to talk about the more of the nitty gritty of actually writing your content and laying it out. And that's always fun because we're moving beyond like the basic stuff, like which is usually just, hey guys, read the DMG. This is like the first class that isn't just like, okay, in this section of the DMG, you don't have to hurt yourself to get all this information. And we had to talk about understanding information architecture. And that led to us talking about useful pieces of information in the game and how to handle them. And Dave and I decided to talk about one of the most iconic aspects of the game, the DM screen. I was at my friendly local game store earlier this week because I needed to speak to them and get some stuff. It was my first time being in there since like 2019, so that was kind of emotional a little bit. I know from the before time. And I got a new set of D&D materials.
on like your scarves and big goggles and get into your like Astrovan that you've put spikes on. Like, I must go into the wasteland because that's I don't know. I haven't been outside in like 16 months. I imagine that's what it's like, but
So I got this really huge collection of the new stuff. It's cute. Like I haven't had a physical copy of the DMG around in a while. It's my first physical copy of the Monster Manual that wasn't owned by my friend. And so we wanted to talk about the DM screen and the useful tool it is. And I was curious, Dave, before we get into some specifics about this, if you had any thoughts on the DM screen since you've been with the hobby since 1991.
So this one's from 2003-ish. I think I've got an old Ravenloft one hiding around here somewhere too. When I say old, I mean like the before time. But yeah, DM screens, you know, the purpose of the DM screen was to hide your notes and dice rolls and anything else that you wanted to hide. The funniest thing I told Sarge and I talked about this a little bit beforehand, but sometime it feels like that commercial with the little girl where they're like soft tacos, crunchy tacos, and she's like, why not both? And it was like such an obvious like, oh duh. That's how it felt when they went from going for the vertical like 8.5 by 11 panels to the, you know, turning it horizontal. And I was like, oh, that's such a duh thing, because before, you know, they were just so like so ridiculous, like they'd be pretty high, and I don't know if they ever like figured out the Archimedean math, you know, but like you'd be like, what's happening? Really couldn't really see what was going on, but then they made them that the flatter versions, like, oh, now I can actually like see what's going on and people can't really see what's this. So that was kind of nice. And they were always good for like keeping your most immediately necessary information in front of you, so that was pretty nice too. So, you know, the basic things, because there's a lot of data that you remember. In fact, in older editions there's even more. I mean, you had to remember, like, you know, you had DACO tables and stuff like that, which could be kind of easy to not know all those pieces. So those were pretty nice as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm down with them. Granted, you know, nowadays it's VTT, so you have a built-in DM screen there. So the function is the same. It's just digital now. It just interestingly, towards the end, when I was doing live games in late 2019, I think I wasn't using the DM skills. I was using my laptop a lot, and that was kind of taking the same place because again, it's a naturally built-in DM screen, and that's so I could like project things on screen. And I had kind of a nice little setup. We were using my attorney's boardroom for our games. So this big old room with a giant table to run a games. It's it's kind of a dream setup, next to like doing it in like Joe Manganiello's basement or something. But it was still like pretty cool. But yeah, I'd really kind of start moving away from it, just because it's like I didn't feel the need to hide anything anymore, and I know the rules upside down, so I didn't really need all the charts. Granted, since I have my laptop, I could pull stuff up lickety split. If like, oh, what is this supposed to be? I can't remember. But yeah, I'm all about the DM screen. I loves it.
I think it's been weird for me being online because I looked at the new this DM screen today, and I don't think you all are going to be able to see it in the Podquest appropriately, but I really like the way this is laid out. First, as they've explained, like because it's longer than it is taller, it's more useful. And there's a lot of stuff that's really useful. You got the guidance on the origination of a point for your features. The actions and combat section is great. The physical rules about how to jump, how does suffocation work, because it always comes up randomly. Concentration, things you can do in your turn, all of the conditions. It's very important to have those in front of you because they come up a lot in the game.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of general guidance for how do most of the features work and general DCs and how much damage to set for things. And there's even some stuff about the towns and how to travel between them and how much do things cost in the town. And like all this information is technically at our fingertips on a VTT, but I kind of wish some of the VTTs had like an instant DM screen button that had this information actually at a click. I wish I didn't have to go through so many steps to set it up myself right away, because there's a lot of useful stuff right there. I can't hear. You didn't.
Okay, on Roll20, don't tell anybody listening. Okay, we'll make one.
Sure, that's another project to take on.
Charge $100 for it. Okay. All right. I don't think anybody heard that, Sarge. So continue what you were saying.
Yeah, I think DM screens are good and bad. I think DM screens are good because the DM side of the board is so messy. Like you've got notes, you've got books, you've got dice, you've got minis that you might be ready to deploy for your players, but you kind of want to be a surprise, like, oh, you thought you were fighting hobgoblins today? Bam, it's a dragon. But, so I think it's useful in that regard because it can help with the mystique of the game. So like what the DM's flipping through isn't as apparent to you. It provides an effective barrier for the DM sometimes to figure out some stuff, like if they're flipping through stuff. I think on the bad side, though, for players who've never been on the other side of the screen, it's all mysterious to them, so they have no idea what's happening there. And I think it makes some of them really nervous about being on the other side because they have no idea what happens on that side of the table. And I think it'd be more useful sometimes for them to see what you're going through so that they know that they can do it too. So I gotta say, like, I really like the DM screen a lot as a resource and as a storytelling implement. But damn, I think I miss them. Like I've been on VTTs for like a year and a half now, and I think I miss them.
We should probably do a podcast one time between the difference between VTT and live action. But I think the hardest thing with the VTT is it's really hard to do improv style without having like, hundreds of dollars worth of assets loaded and into it. Because like today, I needed to do a fight in the stables. So what I did was I took the map I already had and I just drew a line at the top. I was just using that same map. Because it's like I didn't have anything loaded up and I didn't have time to like put it in and do the dynamic lighting offhand. And we create a lot of products that solve that problem. But if it was like if I just had a ChessX map, it'd be like, and you guys are in a stable. You can't really. I guess you could say that with like a VTT. I can just get the box troll to like.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for the sake of the listeners. So VTT is a virtual tabletop like Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, Foundry. There's one I know of right now called Let's Roll. Tom's talked about another one on his Patreon. I can't remember the name of it right now. Yeah. These are any sort of system that allow you to play either online or non-locally with your prospective players. I mean, some people use just the D&D Beyond Avray bot in a Discord server.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So there's a lot of options for playing online these days. But I don't know, like, it's not that I'm like wistful about being in person, because there are aspects of VTT play I prefer, especially when it comes to tracking active features, especially once the party hits 7th level or higher. Like tracking slow synaptic static and all these other things, having the VTT handle the dice for you for that. I'm spoiled as hell about stuff like that. But man, I think the DM screen is honestly one of my favorite aspects of D&D now that I have one in front of me again.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it's two different games ultimately, is doing it in person and doing it on like Roll20 or something. It's not the same. I mean, I don't think I counted for dark vision nearly as much until I started doing TTs. But yeah, I guess we could probably talk about that all day. But let's take another one of our questions from our dear live listeners, all three.
I had to mute us because we were echoing.
Yeah.
I was hearing you on both ends. Let's see. We got questions about long swords, I think. And then the legendary patrons wanted us to discuss the TTRPG Twitter sphere's current obsession with whether or not lizards have titties.
Yeah, I don't know if that's...
Charlie asked the question. Well, Joe asked the question. Here's one. Why are players either murder hobos or collect a zoo of NPCs? Is there even an in-between?
I don't know about a collect a zoo of NPCs. I don't think I've met that much in my journeys. I mean, I've definitely had some players named Joe who really freaking like that and everything. Joe. But the like, as far as Murderhobos go, I think it's like, what's the best way to describe it? I don't think I've ever seen like a pure murder hobo. Like, you always hear like the stories of like, oh, and then he just killed the shopkeeper. It's like, I think a lot of it comes from a DM not enforcing the appropriate consequences. And if you create a world that doesn't have consequences like it would in the real world, like, you can't just go to 7-Eleven and like kill somebody because they didn't give you a pack of cigarettes fast enough, right? So like, because the police will come and then you'll go to jail and that's where you'll stay. And if that isn't a real threat, I think the players are like, well, I can kind of do whatever I want and, enforce my will. So you need to enforce some consequences. I mean, some of it might be psychological too. It's just like, I need to bop imaginary things because my day sucked or whatever. I've never been one for like being, I mean, I don't play often, but I've never been one for being like a murder hobo. I'm more interested in interacting with the world in interesting ways and seeing how I can change it. I'm the worst kind of player to play or to DM for, because I want to change, like, I want to make big changes with the world. But it's yeah, as far as collecting NPCs, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because it means they want to engage with the world and know a little bit more or be more involved by collecting characters that the DM's created.
I think it's better for the game for the party to have ongoing relationships, positive and negative, with people in the world. I have in my own home game, one of my players really hates allowing recurring villains to exist. I've only been able to accomplish it with rogues who can use cunning action. And so I have never really had a rogues gallery in my game because my players are very efficient at NPC takedowns, unless I contrive a lot of defenses for them to escape on the front end. And I personally prefer a style of game that has the party setting down roots, but a lot of that could be influenced by, again, the games I played growing up. Like, I played games made by BioWare. So if you play like Knights of the Old Republic, Dragon Age, Mass Effect, those games are really built around you developing long-term connections with other NPCs in the world and some of the various locations that you want to protect. And that's kind of what I try to bring to my table as well. I like for players to have NPCs. Like I want them to befriend the local cleric. I like to give them problems that are going to require them to go chat with an NPC and get them to help. Mostly because I might want them as a quest giver later on, but it also gives the party a friend and an ally they can call upon if they need to do something later. And it gives them people they can call upon in a time of need, where maybe their local cleric isn't the strongest NPC who can help them at that moment, but they're part of a hierarchy, which means they could reach out to someone who might be, which again can lead to new discoveries in your game.
Yeah.
Like we joked and was that I don't know if it was on this podcast we joked about like a bishop showing up and like his ability to cast higher spells than a priest.
I think Axer was asking us a question about formatting. I wanted to cover that.
Yeah, let me pull it back up. He asked us. Oh, he said concerning formatting. Do we have any tips for converting from one system to another?
That's a good question. I mean, it depends on what you calling one system to another. Are you talking about different editions, or are you talking about totally different games? Typically, with like if you're taking an older edition games, there's some rules for doing that, but I'd keep the formatting relatively the same. The best thing to do with other formatting between different rule sets I would look at the motifs of what's being done in a popular supplement or item within that rule set. Like if you want to do like a Chaosium Call of Cthulhu adventure, taking like a popular example of that material and trying to like duplicate the way it's formatted. That's what I would do. But a lot of the same things are still going to be there. There's still going to be H1, H2 tags, different headers to, divide. Granted, Call of Cthulhu tends to be a little bit more longer winded. I think it could use an update, to be frank. To make it a little bit more accessible for people who don't feel like reading, walls and walls of text. But just that's really what it comes down to, is just looking at what's already there and trying to duplicate that.
Xylev asked us, because I don't have much to say on that. I haven't played in enough other systems to have a big conversation about it. I would say though, like I got asked on Twitter, somebody involved me in a conversation with another indie creator. It was a question around playtesting, and I don't necessarily think most playtesting for an RPG should be built around like raw mechanical balance. I mean, unless you're testing out the rules themselves. I think more than anything, the legibility of your content matters more than anything. I find that so long as the players who are running your game understand how it works and why it works, even instinctively, a lot of the systems can self-regulate.
Mm-hmm.
I think I also tend to hate bloat though. Like the more bloated a system becomes, the more I tend to think it suffers. I think secretly one of the two best designs that they introduced in 5th edition, or formalized more in 5th edition, in case I'm wrong, because I didn't play older editions. Don't drag me in the comments, please. Is concentration and attunement. Because the players have to weigh the trade-offs of those. Like you can introduce 100 concentration spells, but the player can only use one at a time and benefit from one at a time. And it's the same thing with magic items that require attunement. You have to decide what items you think are valuable for what you're trying to accomplish at the time.
Yeah, Keith Amon writes a lot about in his Monster Tactics series about bad spell lists on monsters. I think Flame Skull is one that he brings up because it has a lot of concentration based spells but not a lot of slots. So it's like, what does it want to use? Because when you're using a concentration spell, it's pretty much your one choice for combat, especially as a monster, right? Because you're only going to be around for 3 rounds, so it's like, pick a good one. So I think, like, at least when I'm writing, I try to use concentration spells that are I use like a couple concentration spells. Oh, excuse me. Let's call it a day of work. Concentration spells, and then I'll throw in something like mirror image or something that doesn't require concentration. That can stack with the other stuff going on there. Or I think freedom of movement is another one that stacks and things like that don't have concentration. But I think there's a lot of I really like those features in there because it is all games are resource management. Ultimately, at least most games are. I mean, there's some that can arguably not be resource management, but it's all about D&D is at its heart a resource management game, and the only thing that you get with each level is more resources with which to use, and that includes hit points and magic effects and one-shot stuff, right? So, understanding that, and I think really the way they put it in the rules was super clever with 5th edition. Like more so than 3rd, which was kind of like everything stacked. Everything.
I think one of the things I also like it doesn't matter what level of the game you're at. I think that's one of the things that I think works well in 5th edition. It's inherently additive sometimes. So like a level 1 character has an action, a bonus action, and a reaction. They get one free action that has very limited usage in the game, and they get their move, which they can break up on their turn. And it's the same for a level 20 character. Just level 20 characters have more complex actions, bonus actions, reactions, and probably significantly more movement. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really strong design because it makes higher level play feel instinctively attainable. And it's something you can understand. Like my favorite moment in my game was I had a player who had only experienced D&D through watching campaign 1 of Critical Role twice, which is wild, but because it's so long. He was very nervous when he first started playing his barbarian, who was just kind of a clone of Travis Willingham's barbarian character, whose name I cannot remember now. I think it's Grog. I might be wrong, but I think it's Grog. Mm-hmm. Eventually he evolved into his own character because I kept throwing weird stuff at him until he made it his own character. And my favorite moment was when they were fighting Tiamat at the end of their game. Somebody asked him, "Did you use your thing?" And he goes, "Look, guys, I only have one bonus action." And that was my favorite growth moment of the entire experience, when my most nervous player was confidently running his turns in the most deadly combat they'd ever been involved in, and he shied at the rest of the players for trying to interfere with him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's do one more question here. What's a good question?
Zylab asked us our thoughts about people collecting dice.
About people collecting dice.
Do you collect dice?
No. I mean, I've got a lot of dice, but that's by virtue of like not throwing them away. Not like I'm going to get some dice.
Yeah, I don't. I think I'm sorry, we don't have anything to disagree on when it comes to that. Like Dave and I guess are not those people. Like, here's my dice bag.
Yeah.
I have 2 sets of dice in it, mostly because sometimes I need to roll multiple D6s together. That's about it. And I need advantage, disadvantage.
I'll come in a big Columbia mug that I bought in the airport in Cartagena.
I just have a purple D20 because I like the color purple. And then there's some gold colored dice in here. Oh, and then there's a D6 in here that I think I accidentally found from one of my buddies.
Some of these I know are pretty old. Ooh, my D12, that's a D4. One of my favorites. See, 3, 4.
Why do you have a D12 that's a D4?
Huh?
Why do you have a D12 that's a D4?
Because it's better than a D4, which looks like a caltrop.
That's fair.
This is from, I always remember these. These are from the Master box set, Indiana Jones game. And like, I don't know why, you got 2 in the box, and they both look like this. And that's probably some of the oldest dice I own, because I bought that probably in the early 90s. And somehow it's like never gone away. The rest of these, I don't know. I mean, like my Fandelver dice are in here somewhere. Like I'm pretty sure this is a Fandelver die, like one of the blue ones.
I think it's the same impulse for almost any sort of collecting. Like people used to collect marbles, and I feel like dice probably fall into the same place. Some people use dice thematically for what the character may be going through, maybe the sort of arc the party is on. Sometimes people believe the dice are cursed, and so they want to change them up.
Yeah, I mean, I get some fate dice in here. Minus, plus, nothing. Look at some metal. So I was thinking about doing a dice through Amazon. So I've got a bunch of metal dice that I tested from a factory in China. But yeah, I mean, I kind of get worked up. And now that I do all my games online, and I likely probably won't change too much because one, I mean, virtual tabletops are just convenient as hell. I mean, I have a huge like wheeled box that I got from like Home Depot or whatever that I used to carry everything around, and the thing is heavy. Like the first head broke because it's just so heavy. Not having to do that anymore, and really, being able to type in what I need, and like you said, keeping track of things. It's just like, yeah, there's a lot of nice things about playing. Like I still love board games. I think board games are way more fun played in person.
For sure.
But they are less fiddly than D&D can be. So, and have a lot, less information. I'm gonna stop playing with these dice.
Yeah, I think like I mentioned this earlier, I think that's a big thing for me. Like I like a lot of D&D. I like dice as a resolution tool for drama, but I'm not really that into counting dice. I know some people get a lot of fun out of it, but I find it tedious. Maybe it's because I played academic games growing up, so I had to play a very complex set of games that involve dice that I don't want to describe on the Podquest and break things up. But if you're curious, you can look up the Academic Games League of America, and you can look up equations and onsets. Those are games I was very proficient in as a teenager. Like I spent so much time having to count dice related to math and equations I had to solve that like I don't really get excited about counting dice and reading dice. I get more interested in what are the outcomes of dice. So like I don't care that you rolled a 54 on a fireball. Like I care that you rolled 54. I'm not excited to count 6 plus 5. Ooh, another 5. Oh, this one's gonna be good. I'm more excited to get to the resolution point about, wow, you did a 54 damage fireball that wiped out this entire section of the board. That just saved the wizard's life because they were surrounded by creatures. Wizard, your turn is up next. What do you want to do? It's like, well, now that my time is freed up, I'm gonna cast a meteor swarm. Okay. So
within a mile radius.
I think it's just like any sort of collecting. Like some dice are really attractive. I've held some dice that I think are really pretty and felt good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how it mostly starts. Like most dice I have are incidental or necessary. Like I bought my first purple set because I needed one. And then I think I was given my clear set by someone else. And that's basically been the bulk of my game for like three years.
Maybe like tarot cards. You're not allowed to, you must be given dice. You cannot be buy your own dice.
Oh no, people buy a lot of dice out there, man.
Oh no, I know. Blows my mind when I see like a dice, just a Kickstarter for dice. They're like, they're dice. And like the thing does like $100,000. I'm like, good grief. Here I am like a fool writing stuff when I could selling dice that I bought in bulk from Alibaba. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I definitely have collections of stuff in D&D. I'm currently buying or trying to collect all the back issues of they're all back issues of Dungeon Magazine, and making my way through that collection. So if you're in the Discord, you'll hear me often curse about how somebody sniped. Like I'm like, hoo, I'm getting away with getting number 2 for like.
Now the people in the Podquest are going to be sniping you.
Like I was like, I had like such low bids on such early issues because I've got number 1, so that one's done. But issues like 2 through 9 are like kind of price. Well, I just got 9, but like all those early issues are really like hard to get cheap. Like number 2 is like $70, and number 3 is like $50, and then it kind of like levels off, and then it goes back up to when it gets towards the end. So I have number 150, which cost me some money, and if you can find them bagged, which is really hard, especially on the old ones, because I think they all came in bags from the beginning. They can be really expensive, but still, that's about all I collect. And then I got like a bunch of old Dark Sun stuff, which I bought last year, and I might go on a Ravenloft kick. I really like the old Ravenloft products; they're fun. But yeah, no dice collecting here. Definitely.
I'm not against it. It doesn't bother me when a player shows up with a huge pile of dice at the table.
I'm all for hobbies. I tried collecting Funkos for like a minute, and I was like, I'm. Like I think I have like a need to like have utility with the things I collect. I also like there being like a hard limit, and that's the thing with dice. There's no limit to the number of dice. I mean, you can like fill a closet with dice and not be done. But with 150 issues, I'm done.
That makes a lot more sense. Like I talk about this because I'm from New Orleans and I survived Katrina, and that really hampered my desire to collect things. Because like I had like 2 generations of like Star Wars toys before Katrina, because my uncles passed down their toys to me, and they were like, "Yeah, we took care of them, hoping that we'd have a nephew or a son." And I'm like, I was the only boy for 20 years, so I had all of the Star Wars toys because my sister and my cousins weren't that into it. They're mostly girls. So I had all the Star Wars toys, and then like our roof got ripped off by a tornado. So all the toys got rained on, even though they were stored above the flood line. And like ever since then, having to gut multiple houses, collecting just doesn't appeal to me because I'm like, I don't want to have to throw it away during the next disaster.
Yeah, I had a pretty nice comic book collection, and I ended up cheap selling all of them at a garage sale, which immediately I regretted because some of these assholes just straight up told me, they're like, that one was worth blah blah blah. I'm like, fuck. But I was like, hey, if you're gonna do that, Jack, get out of here. But yeah, there was some heartbreak. I won't even share some of the stuff I had. Some of you will be like, you fool. Like, let's just say there's popular TV shows and stuff that weren't popular when I sold them or gave them away. Yeah, Boys Number One, I had that. How much did I sell for? Not what it's worth. So stuff like that. But yeah, it's with D&D, it's nice because a red and black book comes out every 2 or 3 months. Dungeon, I get 150 and I'm done. Maybe I'll get Dragon, which has like 400. No, Dragon's a lot harder because Dragon number 1 costs like $1,500. I'm like, oof.
Ooh.
Yeah. Spend $1,500 or hire somebody else in the company. Another employee. But yeah, I think that's it, Sarge. I think we've talked up our time here.
Yeah, no, this is an interesting episode. I think there's a lot of cool stuff for us to talk about in the future. I think one of the things we might start doing is revisiting some older stuff and talking about it more in depth.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
But let us know in the comments if there's something you guys want us to talk, guys, gals, and non-binary pals want us to talk about.
Yeah, as always, you can hit us up in the comments down here on YouTube. You can also like. I think I'm pointing. That's the like.
I think it's over there.
Trying to be like you savvy. It's right here, guys. And then you can subscribe. Smash it.
Oh my goodness.
Smash it. And if you're not a patron already, go ahead and see us at patreon.com/DMDave, where you can see all of our beautiful content, 5th edition adventures and stuff, most of which are free, much to Sarge's chagrin. But you should charge for that. No, I want to give it away. 55 pages. But as always, thank you. We love you. Thank you so much. And we will see you on the next episode. And don't forget, read the fucking DMG.
Please.
Good night.